with the wicked. Don't know. What's good, people? It's on the Bywire. It's Monday, what is it, like 21st of June? Oh, it's meant to be Freedom Day. Oh, man. I'm sorry. Commiserations to all the people that thought this was actually going to be Freedom Day for the United Kingdom. Oh, my days. I nearly knocked my table off its legs. Boy, I'm sorry, guys. Well, I'm not sorry. It wasn't my fault, but I'm sorry for you if you thought you genuinely was going to be able to go out and not wear a mask and be able to just release yourself from all of them. Oh, man, it's a madness. Seriously, look, hopefully in a month we can do things again, yeah? We'll be able to go out, we'll be able to get vibesy, and in a year, hey, come on, we'll be able to do Notting Hill Carnival. Now, like with most things after the last 18 months, everything is just everything has just not gone to plan at all. And one thing I am definitely planning on is being able to dirty wind down Ladbroke Grove in my tightest shorts with all kinds of colors all over me with some red stripe and super malt. Don't know. It's going to be a vibe. No cameras, people. No cameras. I will not be reporting other than telling you I need some more beer. Come on. Now, that didn't ruin my weekend. I hope you did have a good weekend, people. And I am so happy to be back here live on the air on a Monday night, giving you vibes ready for that Tuesday. But I'm going to give you some hard-hitting news. I'm going to give you some cool news. We're going to give you independent news. This is Bywire. Don't forget to check our website out. It's bywire.news. Check out our independent media partners and hit the donate button if you can. Back to the hard-hitting news, though. I'm going to get straight into it with Declassified, who have been doing the great work they always do. And today, they've released a piece by Phil Miller looking into the Gulf spy master. It's a mad thing, Gulf spy master, that bought John Terry's £16 million mansion and why he is being challenged over corruption. It's a madness. There's a spy master that hasn't been challenged over corruption. Now, there's a great short video on the website there. When you go on Declassified UK, that explains a lot more about it. But as always at Declassified, they've explained the failings of the UK government to investigate or challenge the potential corruption in this case. As you'll imagine, it is not as simple as it seems. And under so-called McMafia orders, UK authorities can require foreign officials or politically exposed persons to explain how they afforded luxury homes in England. Those unable to satisfy such inquiries risk having their property confiscated. Now, this politically exposed persons thing, just to give you a more in-depth understanding, this can happen to anyone. So I used to be a councillor, right? Like for a local authority, and I became a politically exposed person. And my bank questioned me about my political exposition or whatever it is. And they like proper questioned me. And when I went to open new accounts with any financial organization, they would ask me some in-depth questions about this. But you know, if I was a spy master from the Gulf, life's okay. It's just mad. Now, as you'll imagine, you know, as I said this before, it's a very, very complicated situation here where it happened back in 2014, and those that are unable to satisfy these kind of inquiries basically risk having their property confiscated. But so far, prosecutors have only served unexplained wealth orders against a handful of individuals, and there is likely to be strong resistance from the Foreign Office if such measures were ever considered against a close British ally like Al-Namani, who is in question here. Now, he has frequent meetings with senior UK officials such as Defence Secretary Ben Wallace and Head of the Military General Nick Carter. Now, keeping with the state of this government and their affairs, over at Union News, Tim Lazard has today released an article about Ace Rule. Now, I've got to give a little shout out here. Andrea, who's been on the show before, interviewed Ace on Socialist Telly. So if you go and check that out, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, like us, they're everywhere. That interview really is in depth. But specifically here on Union News, they've done a really good piece Looking at Ace's story, Ace is an actor that has been very successful, but due to a short time in jail earlier on in life, is currently unable to hold a passport and required to pay £2,389 every 30 months just to stay in the country, even though he was born here to his Jamaican-born mother. It's a story with similarities to many of the Windrush stories we have heard over recent years. And Union News have, along with ourselves here on the Bywire, again asking you to sign the petition, calling on the government to reverse its decision and provide Ace with indefinite leave to remain in the UK. And number two, abandon its cruel, racist policy of threatening to make UK citizens stateless, including through deportation to countries they have no right of residency or citizenship to. And third, significantly speed up the process of providing compensation to those eligible for payment under the Windrush Compensation Scheme. I'll make sure to post the link to the petition in the comments through the show, and it will be on my Twitter later today. I'll ask the social media team on Bywire if they can do that too, because I've got them on the show tonight. Now, another one of our independent news partners, Corporate Watch, have this weekend released a piece on a new mega prison being built by the government in Chorley. Now, this is just down the road from me, so I'm very interested in this one. But this is a part of a wider plan for 18,000 new prison places across the UK. It begs the question as to the government's aims. Are they trying to make more criminals, or are they trying to make the world a better place and prevent crime? With diminishing numbers of police on our streets, who's going to arrest these criminals to fit in these 18,000 spaces? I don't really get it. Now, my views on the criminal and justice system have been made clear many, many times before, especially on this show. So I have a lot of time for the Corporate Watch team, who have spoken to many people, including current inmates, prison guards, and communities near the location where the prison is planned to be built, looking at what opposition there will be and what impacts this will have on them and our wider criminal system and strategy. By our, I mean the government, obviously. Now, the article also looks at the, well, let's be honest, slave labor taking place in these prisons, one already built in Wales, and the lack of care for the people in them. I definitely recommend checking out the Prisoner Solidarity Campaign. They're big on Instagram, and they will give you a lot more information about the way that prisoners are treated, but also how you can get involved in showing some solidarity to people that are facing basically situations that they shouldn't have to. Let's not forget the knowledge that we have on the higher likeliness of black men being sent to prison compared to white men for the same crime. It gives us more reason to say Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. I will say it again and again, and it's okay, England fans. You can boo me all you want. Black lives still matter. No, I can't hear you. Black lives matter. I will say it over and over and over again, no matter how many times it gets booed on the telly or from your lounge in wherever it may be. Now, in other news, Jeremy Corbyn MP has been accused of photobombing thousands of people's photos. This has been probably one of my favorite hashtags of this year. I love the humor of people who use the internet and taking on an odd claim from Angela Rayner MP about JC photobombing her in a photo where she posed with him after speaking on a stage with him. Mads. Also, can we just point out, right? There's this whole thing, right? So a photobomb is when someone jumps in your photo. You can't say, oh, they photobombed me because they're in the background. They have to have jumped in. They have to have intentionally done it. There are some decorum around these things. Also, a selfie is a picture that's taken by yourself. You can't call it a selfie if you didn't take it yourself. I'm sorry. Boomers, get with the times, man. Seriously. It's been 15 years of selfies and you're still getting it wrong. Anyway, I do feel for the guy, Jeremy, because he's one of the most ethical, honest, genuine, loving, giving, beautiful, just caring people ever. Honestly, when it comes to good white guys, he's one of the top ones, but he's had the most horrible attacks thrown at him by the mainstream media and people in his own party. On that point, he's not even a Labour MP anymore because of all the attacks. And after all those years defending the party, even Labour MPs, they've been attacking him to where we are now. And Angela is pretending she didn't even see him after speaking on a stage with him. seriously, man, I just like the guy. So, you know, reinstate Corbyn for PM. Don't know, it is where it is. Meanwhile, the mainstream media turn this into a big story as if there are not serious things going on in the world that we should really know about. But that's where On the Bywire come in. We are here to give you a roundup of today's independent media stories. Bywire's very own Klaudia Fior will be joining us later in the show to talk about stories from our partners at The Canary, The New Internationalist, and The Meteor. Big up The Meteor, The Internationalist, and The Canary, and all the other partners doing big, mad things for all the people out there, giving them information they should have. Now, before Klaudia, we will be hearing from Shonli Bhattacharya, who will be telling us who Belly Mujinga is and why activists are demanding an inquiry at Victoria Station into what's happened in her life. I want to get straight into that. So here's the interview from earlier in the week. We are early in the week. It was late last week. I caught up with Shonli, and here's the interview. Over the last year, the name Belly Mujinga has popped up in a few different places. There's been some coverage on national media. We saw you on our TV screens last year, and also there's like a petition which I'm sure you'll give us the figures for. They're quite massive. A couple of notable names have come out online saying the name Belly Mujinga. Who is Belly? What's her story? Why do we need justice for Belly?
Belly Mujinga was a 47-year-old ticket office clerk. She worked at the Govia Thameslink Railway office at Victoria Station. She was a black woman, trade unionist, a mother, and she'd been working there for quite a long time. Her regular role was behind, like the ticket office, so behind the person. Yep. Of the ticket office. And the reason why Belly's name has become so important is because she's absolutely emblematic of the way that frontline workers have been let down catastrophically by this government, disproportionately black people, disproportionately black women. So that's Belly Mujinga. She was let down by her employer. She's been let down by the government. So before the first lockdown happened last year, you might remember, like if you take your mind back to last March, it was like really, really like precarious time. Like I think we were all going around in a bit of a fog, right? Like I think a lot of us were thinking, a lot of us were going about our business thinking we should not be going about our business, but we're not given any leadership whatsoever. I remember like really feeling like we were being thrown to the wolves. I mean, for Belly, that was like times 10, right? So she was like going into work and she had underlying health problems, quite serious underlying health problems. She'd taken time off to go and have surgery. Like clearly her employer knew that because they had to give her time off. But she was still going into the workplace. There's a video that she recorded at that time to send back to her family in the DRC to say, here I am, I'm here in Victoria. I don't feel like I should be here, but what can I do? I've got to go to work. We all been there, right? We've got to pay the rent. We've got to put food on the table. So here I am. But what she didn't say in that video, which was even more sort of like heartbreaking and enraging, is it's not just that she's been made to go to work, it's that she was being made to go to work and being put into even more danger by her employer. So she had a complaint ongoing against one of her managers about racial harassment and discrimination, intimidation. That same manager around that time, just before the first lockdown, made her go out of her usual role, which was behind the desk at the ticket office, and have a frontline role on the concourse at Victoria Station with her close friend and colleague Motolani. Now, this
just at a time when the pandemic was about to hit.
Yeah,
and we were all fully aware.
Yeah. We were fully aware. Like, I think we all knew it had hit, right? I mean,
well, yeah.
But there was no guidance and there was no leadership from the government. But the union,
no excuse for taking responsibility of your employees.
Yeah, for sure. And the unions were being much more proactive. Like the unions were sort of saying, people need to be stood down if they have underlying health problems. People need PPE. So it's not like, no one can pretend that people were not, talking about how to protect frontline workers. So she and Motolani were unwillingly on the concourse. I have to say, like, quite bizarrely as well, like there weren't many people using the trains. It wasn't like there was an urgent need for Belly and Motolani to be on the concourse and doing customer facing work.
Yeah, like I've been to Victoria on a quiet day, like so it's normal. I don't know now because it's been a while since I've been there on a regular basis, but like on a normal day, it is normal to expect Victoria to be closed, like people to be stopped to be allowed in while they clear the platform and then let another load of people, and that's normal. So for it to be quiet, it's not quiet. Like you're still waiting 10 minutes to get to the machine on a quiet day, right? And in that video, there was no one at any of the machines.
Yeah, exactly. It was an eerie time. It was like, it was like that specials video. It was like Ghost Town, right? It was like, it's like, because no one was going out if they could help it, because we all knew that there was a pandemic that hit the shores. But there's Belly made to go to work, and not only at work, on the concourse. And so on this day in March, she was on the concourse with Motolani as sort of like a customer service facing sort of rep, and an unknown white man, quite a big white man. If you've seen the CCTV, Lawrence Davis, the lawyer working with Belly's family, has reviewed this CCTV. He's one of the few people who've seen it, and he describes quite a towering sort of white man, goes over to them and starts shouting at them and spitting at them and coughing on them, and tells them that he has COVID. Belly and Motolani are obviously terrified. Like Motolani describes like Belly's absolute fear, like really, really scared. Belly runs to the bathroom. She's like splashing her face. She understands absolutely what the implications are for her, for someone, allegedly to have COVID spitting in her face. It's really serious. She has underlying health problems. She's on medication. They tell their managers, and their managers' response is sort of, well, they sent, they sort of, they really downplay it, essentially. They don't treat it with any sort of importance. And they send them back out onto the concourse, despite Belly and Motolani saying, we do not want to go back out on the concourse. They send them back out. And significantly, they don't call the police. They do not log this with British Transport Police. They say at the time, it's like, oh, we didn't know. It was like a spitting incident has to automatically be logged with the police, but they claim not to know that.
Like also, when you get on any public transport in the UK, it says we have zero tolerance towards for abuse towards our staff. You would have thought that would have been the first thing they did, was like ban that person from the station. But some people may disagree with me, but maybe that more applies to white members of staff than it does black members of staff.
There's clearly like a dereliction of duty, right? Like, I mean, like even if we're not getting into the legal side of it, what a response to have to a member of your staff being abused and assaulted. Where's the duty of care? But even when you get into the legalities of it, like objectively, it should have been logged with the police.
Well, yeah.
And weeks later, it still wasn't logged with the police, and like this has been really. Really significant in the case. And so Belly came down with COVID. She was seriously ill.
One of the early cases then.
Yeah, really early case in the UK. So she came down with COVID. She was seriously ill. She was still being compelled to go into work even when ill. So they wouldn't give her time off. It took her doctor, like her consultant at the hospital, ringing the manager to say, you have to stand her down in order for them to relent. And she was given time off, but she was unfortunately you know, taken to hospital very shortly after that. Oh, he's still there. Yes, unfortunately, so a few days after that, in April, Belly was unfortunately admitted to hospital, and she died in early April of COVID. Motolani came down with COVID as well, but, you know, thankfully survived. But, you know, like, Belly leaves behind like a young daughter, like who's like 12. It's catastrophic for her family, as you can imagine.
That is, you know, out of all the stories that you hear over the last year, you know, this one is I suppose the big thing with this one is there's so many times where things could have been done to improve what's going on in the world, but with Belly, like the fact that she was put out there onto the concourse, the fact that her underlying health conditions were ignored, the fact that they didn't actually, you know, give her any medical or physical or mental support after that incident happened. There's so many letdowns there that, like, you don't have to be a HR officer or a union rep to just have the compassion to actually know about these things, right? So, you know, there's been a couple of vigils outside Victoria Station, and beautiful acts of solidarity from across the UK, you know, right from the north to the south. You've had different groups coming out and doing their own vigils as well. So big up all the gal them, all the man them inside doing the bits there. But where are things at? Is the inquiry happening, or are they dragging their feet, or are they maybe just dangling a carrot on a stick?
So the inquest has been okayed by the coroner. So the inquest will be going ahead. We are currently waiting for a date, because obviously we want that to be a real focus. We want to have, like, obviously depending on what restrictions are at that point, but we want there to be as much public support as possible during that inquest, outside the inquest, online. Saying, like, we're watching. You cannot stitch this up. This is crucial for Belly and her family, and it's also about all of us. It's about every worker, every frontline worker, especially every black and brown frontline worker, about how we've been let down. And so it's, justice for Belly Mujinga is justice for a lot of us. And then we had a vigil in April to mark the first year of Belly's death, which Belly's husband Lisamba spoke at. And also Lawrence, the lawyer working with their family, read out a just heartbreaking card written by Belly's daughter to her mum. And this is a young kid who
12 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. Where's the justice?
Yeah.
Where is the justice on the Bywire? Obviously, you're a regular viewer, so you'll know we talk about justice like every night. It's an issue that comes up, and I feel like so often it is working class, black, brown, LGBT, women. All of these categories of people that. It's amazing their understanding of what justice is, but the actual terms of how close justice is to those different communities, those different people in their hands, it's miles, it's light years away. Real justice for a lot of working class people from all the different diversities of our communities, and this is just another example here where you've got a 12-year-old that is going to fully understand justice for the worst damn reason possible. But that justice, I pray, because of the work you guys are doing, that justice will be within grasping reach, and then actually reachable, and they'll be able to reach justice. But too often, we've had the memorial just recently for Grenfell. There's been the recent revelations in the Hillsborough cases. Too often it gets into grasping distance, but there's some capitalist there waiting to pull it away from you, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, for a lot of people like myself, you know, I'm not on that line, that train line, not specifically able to kind of come down to maybe one of the events in London. What are the steps that people can do at the moment? Should they be, you know, do you still want people to keep signing and sharing the petition?
Yeah, signing and sharing the petition is a really good thing to do, not just because we want to keep bumping up all those signatures, over 2 million now, but it's also a really good way to keep up to date with the campaign. Ultimately, we are pushing for a public inquiry to acknowledge the fact that Belly's death is a human rights issue. You know, all the things we've talked about, that Belly's death represents just catastrophic government mishandling. It is a human rights catastrophe in this country that disproportionately has affected, as we know, like Black and brown people, working class people, learning disabled people.
Apologies, it took a long time to speak to Sean Lee, because the information that was provided was a lot more than you can take in just one sitting, really. The interview with her, I spent about 45 minutes going into detail, asking a lot of the questions, and I've got a lot of credit for the campaign team that have, you know, managed to get. It's now at 2,114,998 signatures. While this has been on air, actually, it's managed to get an extra 7 signatures. I've noticed, which is fantastic. So I'm obviously gonna share that link in the comments. Please do hit up the petition. Keep signing it. Just because it's at 2 million doesn't mean more people can't call for justice. It's so important that this happens, and that the inquiry happens, and that all the evidence is available. I choked up during that interview, just thinking of the fact that there's a 12-year-old daughter without her mum, because of the neglect of employers, the neglect of this government, the neglect of authorities, and over a year later, still no justice. It is unbelievable. And it's unacceptable as well. Also, another petition I am going to post in the comments for you guys is from the Union News article about Ace, who I spoke about earlier. Continuing our flow with hard-hitting news and also the best in independent news. We've got our show's very own Klaudia Fior, who is a massive help to the show, also known as Young Gucci. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. What's going on, Klaudia? How you doing? You good?
I'm good. I'm vibing. I'm enjoying the show, and I'm ready to talk my stuff.
Yeah, come on. It's real. Done though. Right. So, Klaudia, you have been looking at today's independent media news, and from our independent partners. If you don't know, bywire.news, check it out. You know what it is. Hit the donate button. It's real. What's going on? What's first up in the list?
First up, we've got the Meteor.
The Meteor. So in the Meteor, we've got Alexandria Slater has been doing a report looking at a report that documents the hostile environment hitting immigrants hard during COVID. What's the story? What's going on here, Klaudia?
So basically, the Greater Manchester Immigration Aid Unit has done a report which basically summarizes the dire situation that immigrants in the UK are in right now, because of a combination of Brexit, COVID, and also Priti Patel's just inhumane immigration laws, quite frankly. So obviously with Brexit, we've got new travel restrictions, which make everything 10 times more difficult. Then COVID, you've got a backlog at the Home Office. So cases are not getting seen as quickly as they should have been. I think there was a statistic that before you had between the years 2019 to 2022, you had about 1,800 reports of immigrants and about 1,500 1,500 of those were attended to, whereas this year you had about 800 and about 200 of them were attended to. So the change, the backlog is making the situation 10 times worse. And then last but not least, you've obviously got what Priti Patel has decided to do, which basically means now that the support you get when you come into the UK is determined by how you have gotten into the UK. So the only way in which you get benefits is if you've entered through a settlement scheme, essentially. And most asylum seekers and most immigrants don't enter the UK that way because they're obviously escaping this horrible situation back at home. And there's no such thing as a visa for asylum seekers. So they're kind of left with nothing. And that's why I've picked this story. I think it's really important to reinforce what's going on.
Another example of the failed policies of this government. And I mean, was it 2 weeks ago? There was a report that came out that said Britain is not institutionally racist. So I don't get how this is going on. If we're not racist, how is this going on? I don't get it. It's mad.
See, that's the thing. I feel like Britain loves immigrants for its culture, for their culture. But when it comes to anything else, we're very much like, no, get away. We're very nationalist. Like, oh yeah, no, Britain is for British people. Do you know what I'm saying? Britain is for British people. I'm not even British. But you know what point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. No, I hear you, because at the same time, I'm British, but I've had my experiences where I don't feel British. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a mad situation. And I suppose what's good about this, you know, big up the guys at Meteor, but what's good about this article especially is that it continues to document the people who generally aren't documented in years to come. You know, this information is here, the data's here. The team in Manchester, obviously, the GM IAU, their report goes into all the detail, obviously. So make sure you guys check that out, have a good read of it, and learn what's going on. Try and put yourself in the shoes of someone that maybe, you know, the experiences that you've never experienced before, and think about what you can do to try and support these people. There's loads of charities out there.
There's ways to get involved physically as well if sometimes you feel like a charity isn't enough, because I know that I've looked at charities and thought, you know, I want to do a bit more, and there's ways that you can be where immigration border control officers work, and you can help support even by providing them with water and food when they cross the border. Do you know what I mean? So there are tons of ways of getting involved.
Or if you see an immigration forces van or whatever they're called, deportation van, just climb underneath it and lay there and stay there until they go away without anyone in the back of the van, just like they did in Glasgow. Big up the Scots, man. Big up the Scots.
I've been saying to all my friends, I was like, if I see an immigration van, I'm just gonna act like something's wrong with me. So they stop, help me, and that's it. I'll get hit by it if I can. Insurance claim as well.
Trust me, I'm here for the proletariat. What's next in the independent news world? Where are we going next?
Next, we're going with Byline Times and Boris and the media, aka the dynamic duo, the mainstream media, Johnson.
Big up Dorothy Byrne on this one. The pursuit of truth or not. It's a daily question for Boris, to tell the truth or not to tell the truth. I'm not going to tell the truth. That's what he's thinking. Go on, tell me more. Byline Times always do great work, so I'm excited to hear what's going on here.
Do you know what? The reason I've picked this story is because I actually feel like every day I sift through our partner, like independent media partner content, and I feel like at least every other day there's a story about how Boris Johnson has lied. And the independent media do stories about this all the time, yet nothing happens. He just carries on lying. And then you've got the mainstream media on the other hand, who barely ever pull him up on his lies or his wrongdoings or whatever. And that's why he carries on, because it's not actually in the mainstream. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I've picked it, because I'm quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of constantly seeing that he's lied. It's just annoying. But I just feel like it's also, when I see that Boris has lied as prime minister, I'm a bit like, what do you expect from him though? Do you know what I mean? He lied in the past when he wasn't prime minister, when he worked as a journalist. He got fired from the Times for lying early on in his career. He got fired when he worked as a vice chair for the Conservative Party for lying or something as well. So it's like, he's got a track record of lying. We can't really expect much more from him. The country's elected a liar. Kind of, I mean, it's very representative of I feel like a lot of the general public in the UK, and that's quite unfortunate. But
when we were kids, right? Like, you know, everyone was, but I'm an old man now. But when I was a young boy, I was about to go into a Timon and Pumbaa rendition then. But anyway, no, I'm joking. But when I was younger, right, you know, lying's bad. Like, and you know, I used to get the wooden spoon if I lied. You get me? Like, you get it beaten out of you not to lie. And then people made jokes as you get older. You hear people joking, oh, all politicians lie, you know, oh, all the media lies. And it's like this weird thing where all these things that people used to say, they've just become more and more in your face. Like, not only is it true that they lie and become, but you can see it and they don't even care. Like, man, I think I said it last week. Man will literally have a turd in his hand and he will say to you, no, that's not a turd. It's not a turd. And then he'll splat it in your face. In front, he will splat it in your face. And he'll go, I didn't splat a turd in your face. I can't see any turd. And he will sit there for 50 minutes. He will sit there in an interview with any journalist and he will just continue to lie.
And the thing is, well, they'll just report verbatim exactly what he said. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What another thing that I want to mention about this piece that I think is quite interesting is it mentions the fact that a lot of broadcast journalists or like mainstream media journalists have said that they don't want to call out Boris Johnson as a liar or call out his wrongdoing because they don't want to seem as if they've got a bias in the reporting of things. I think that's stupid for the simple fact that I feel like it's impossible, quite frankly, to be impartial, 100% impartial. We're human, we all have opinions. I feel like that what's important is being able to identify what our bias is or what our standpoint is, and then still be able to compare it to a variety of different viewpoints. Whereas what the mainstream media does is just say, here's Boris Johnson's viewpoint, that's it. This is the one that matters because he's the guy in charge, and it kind of creates this like contempt of accountability because they don't hold power to account. He just gets away with everything. And then it's like a little child. If you don't tell them they're doing wrong, how are they ever going to know they're doing wrong? And it's stupid. It's unfortunate to have to say that about the leader of our country, but it's what's essentially happening.
Real talk, honestly. Like, it's mad as well the way, well, like, I suppose I was gonna say, you know, they won't give other opinions, but there aren't any other opinions because there's no opposition at the moment. So who they'll have to go up to Scotland every time they want someone who disagrees with honestly, Boris.
I feel like Keir Starmer is like the child in the background being like, no, please, no. Like I said, no.
I reckon he texts Boris in the morning and he's like, hey Boris, what are we doing today? And Boris reads the message straight away and then ghosts him for the rest of the day. And Keir's like just turns up to events where Boris is and he's like, hi, it's me. It's Keith.
Whenever he disagrees with anything he says, he just puts the text. I'm so sorry. I've got a reputation to keep up.
You know, I can honestly imagine this like WhatsApp thread of just messages from Keith and Boris is like, nah.
Nah, he's probably got him muted.
Occasionally sends him like, I don't know, just a random emoji. Just
whatever he finds on the keyboard. Just the random whale emoji works.
While he's had a mad weekend on the Charlie, he's texting Keith mad ones, and then Monday morning nothing's going on. You get me? Anyway, before I get too wild and get myself into trouble and accusing politicians of doing things they probably do, the big story of the weekends. What is it, and who is it, and what are we talking about?
It is the Canary about Juneteenth.
Yes. Juneteenth becomes U.S. national holiday to celebrate the end of slavery, but not everyone thinks it is enough. This is Joe Glenton from the Canary. Big up the Canary Massive. Done know. Tell us more. What is Juneteenth? Why is it a national holiday in the U.S.? What's going on?
Juneteenth is on June the 19th in 1865 after the U.S. Civil War. It was basically when African Americans in Texas were given their freedom back. Obviously, slavery had come to an end formally a couple of years prior to that, but this is when it officially come to an end because all African Americans were essentially freed. So now it has become national. It has over time it had become commemorated as a holiday to celebrate the end of slavery, but only what, a couple of days ago, literally, was it actually classified by the United States government as a national holiday. So 155 years down the line, have they decided to say that the day slavery ended should actually be a holiday, which I think is quite ridiculous considering that the United States have Groundhog Day. And if you're going to celebrate July 4th, which is Independence Day, it doesn't actually represent Independence Day for all Americans, if we're speaking the truth here. So they should have realistically been acknowledged by default at the same time. Another reason why I think it's funny to say that, it doesn't seem like enough for some. Of course it's not enough. It's taken 155 years. It's taken the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests and pressure following on from that for someone to stand up, for Joe Biden to stand up and say, well, not even Joe Biden, for Juneteenth to be established as a national holiday. And it's almost also quite backhanded for the simple fact that it seems quite performative. Even when Joe Biden, I was about to call him John, Joe Biden announced the news to implement the holiday, he said that he was very pleased that he gets the honor of doing this. And it kind of seemed all a bit like, oh, this is about me, I get to do this. And it's like, if you really want to honor African Americans, maybe make sure that voter suppression isn't rampant throughout their community whenever it comes to elections, or improve wages amongst them, or same way we mentioned that black men are far more likely to be incarcerated here than the white man. Same goes for America. It's probably
more so.
So if we're gonna establish Juneteenth as a national holiday, I feel like you should do things following on from that to actually show your care for the African American community in the United States. Otherwise, it is just a very slap bang public facing action to do just to make it seem like he cares.
100. Also, just on the point of the incarceration of black men in America and the end of slavery, because there was no end to slavery, and I know it's a choice of words, but I think what's written into, I don't fully understand the American system, but what's written into the law that they put in place and when they ended slavery is that the way that they could continue slavery is when you are incarcerated. So every black person that is incarcerated in America are slaves. So there is no end. And I think also what we, here in the UK, what we fail to really recognize is the fact that slavery still goes on in so many places across the world. And I just think that when we use these opportunities to celebrate where achievements have been made to end an amount of slavery, we need to use those opportunities to actually end slavery internationally. We can look at many situations. There are the ports around the world, in the different docks around where people are working and they have their passports confiscated. They're not being paid properly. They're not being fed properly. And also on top of that, like let's look at what was going on to build the Qatar World Cup stadiums. I use it as an example for the Olympics here in the UK. Klaudia, do you know how many people died building the Olympic Park and the Olympic stadiums?
No, enlighten me.
0. Do you know how many people? Well, actually, I don't know the total figure, but last time I saw the figure from different trade unions and international charities, there was a figure of around 2,000 people had died building the Qatar World Cup stadiums and parks and everything. It is unbelievable, it is unacceptable. And these are people that have died in slavery. It is in some ways, I think, good news that, America is recognizing these things, but for all of the points above that you mentioned,
it
100% agree.
Just a very symbolic, 100%. It's amazing. It needs to be acknowledged as a national holiday for the simple fact that obviously it's something that the black community want to celebrate, but because it's not been acknowledged, they can't get time off work. Do you know what I mean? It's little things like that. So it does need to be acknowledged, but it is still a very symbolic thing. And even picking up on the point of you mentioning modern day slavery, I remember, I think back in 2015, I was very young at the time. I was thinking, like 16. I went to a
Don't show your age now.
I'm not going to tell anyone. But I went to a protest for modern day slavery in Libya, and I was so shocked to know that this was still going on in this day and age, and it was right in front of people's eyes, but people just chose to ignore it because if you can't see it, you choose not to believe it.
Trust me. Do you know what? We'll have to get one of the groups who are doing some work on modern day slavery onto the show. That's definitely something we should talk about and pick up on. But listen, Klaudia, boy, I have loved having you on the show today. You're definitely coming back, fam. Definitely.
I want to.
It's a whole vibe. Come on. We have to get you like some big classy background. Like I swear you live in the city. We'll get you the high towers and all that.
I'll just turn out. Do you know what? My view might work, but I don't know if the lighting won't ruin it. I'll just turn around.
I'm gonna keep you on for the end. So, like, listen, guys, I get sad on this day because today is the summer solstice. I think that's what it's called, and that means that winter is coming. Okay, I know it's pessimistic, but it is the longest day of the year, which means now the days get shorter. But I have the joy in my heart that Klaudia is with me tonight, and also that throughout that winter, I am going to be spending Mondays to Thursdays at 9 p.m. when it gets darker and darker and darker. I'm going to be spending it with all of you on the Bywire. If you haven't already, bywire.news, you know what it is. Don't forget to hit the follow button, the like button, the subscribe button, every button you can to show us love. And if you can afford it, hit the donate button on our website, because you owning the media means that those rich guys lose control of the media. The more you fund independent media, the bigger we become. And think about it, we could get like 10 of us doing all different shows all the time. Imagine like 10 times me and Klaudia. It'll be a mud thing. Real talk, people. Klaudia, I'll let you do the outro. You say bye-bye to everyone. Make sure you tell them to follow everything.
Oh, what? Everyone, see you later. Make sure you have a good day. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you can, donate. Bywire.news. That's where you can find us. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Bywire News on everything. It's been me and Dan Lewis signing out.
Peace.